Well, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, my friend. This episode, you guys, you're gonna love. We have the lovely Jasmine Ivy, who is an intuitive business coach. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really glad to be here.
Yeah. So, okay, let me just give our listeners a little backstory of how I know about you, and then we're gonna ask you about you. I know about you from Instagram, but I had gotten somehow hooked into your funnel. Okay, into your funnel, which you obviously are good at because I somehow signed up for this workshop. Don't even know how I did, but I did. And this workshop was longer than one day, but I did listen to one day of it. And the first day of it was what I listened to, and it embodied your story. And I really want our listeners to hear your story. And you can go as in depth as you want to with it. But um, you know, in the middle of the talk, in the middle of your presentation, if you will, you said that life was just too short to play small. Life was too short to not live out the life that you know you can and to become the person that you know you can be. And that just struck a chord so hard with me. And the fact that you teach intuitive business, which is something that I also teach, but I think we probably have definitely different like definitions of it, was something that really drew me to you. So I knew that I needed to talk to you, and I knew that our listeners, especially those that are entrepreneurs or who want to be entrepreneurs, need to hear all the things that you have to say, because I think that you are definitely living out your zone of genius, which is amazing. So first off, let's go ahead and just, why don't you tell us about you, what you do right now? And then I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit more about your story.
Sure. So I am the founder of Women of Woo. We do professional training for women entrepreneurs, although we are now branching out into non-women. And basically what that means, my husband always says, you can't limit it to just women, right? So we offer people an intuitive way to build their businesses. And it's something that I think a lot of people, like you said, don't really know what that means. And it means something a little bit different to everyone. In our case, what that has translated to is courses and a mastermind and one-on-one coaching. And we've been doing this now for several years. And what I've seen is that ultimately, just to speak to your talking point about intuitive business having different definitions, I really think that if you were to take all of our definitions, yours, mine, and whoever else's, and distill that down, I think what we're all really talking about is trusting yourself. Is the ability to, instead of looking at that person's business or how that person is doing it or that funnel or whatever, and instead just simply breathing and coming back to yourself and saying, well, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
You know, rarely we don't ask that of ourselves. What do I think I should do? And just getting back to that space where you can trust yourself and then growing a business from there. It's very powerful to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And are you working with people of all sorts of entrepreneurial, endeavors? Like, where did this come from within you? Were you an entrepreneur before this?
I've been building businesses for 20 years. So I am a recovering, I always joke, it's a retired Silicon Valley marketing executive. So I've been building, startups and businesses since I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
And so, doing that gives you the flexibility to really learn businesses, other people's businesses very quickly, and then to build from there. And so I spent 15 years in the world of corporate business and startups. And so for me, startup marketing and startup business building is a very unique skill. It's kind of like building businesses while riding a rocket to the moon. And so you have to, in order to get funding in a startup, you have to be able to learn businesses very quickly. And so I have what I think is pretty unique in our industry, the ability to learn business very quickly. And so my people, they range. Like a lot of them are types of coaches, service providers, photographers, copywriters, authors, lawyers, doctors. I've had thousands of clients. And so it ranges a very, very broad spectrum. And so, yeah, in my case, it's not necessarily a specialty based on the ideal client.
Got it. Okay. So now I remember you saying that you were working in Silicon Valley because that was part of your story.
Right.
All right, let's get into that.
Okay.
You can make it as long as you can make it as short or as long as you want to, but tell us the pivotal moment part of your story.
Yeah, so I worked in Silicon Valley at the time. So Silicon Valley, for those that don't know what that is, it's an area of San Francisco, California, where a lot of the startups and what then become big names are built. Names like names you would know: Facebook, Netflix, Google. So these are big companies, and this is where startups are born. And so I lived in Portland, Oregon, and flew to San Francisco. That's important for the story. I had, I'm a mother, and so I would fly back and forth. So it wasn't a thing where I was there for very long, but I would come back and forth a lot. So the last time that I went there was August 1st of 2016. And on that morning, I had flown into the San Francisco airport, and I know the date and the time because I had taken a picture. I was feeling very proud of myself at that point. I had a fancy job title and, all the trappings, the things that the world tells us we should have. Oh, yeah. And so I took a picture of my luggage and my Starbucks, for Instagram. I don't even know what I did with it, if I did anything. And that's how I know this day and time. And so then I was waiting for a rideshare driver. In a city like San Francisco, that's what everyone uses, and you really don't think twice about it. So my rideshare driver pulled up, and it was, kind of color matched the app. You always check that. And so I got in. And as we were pulling out, he said, "Where are you going?" I thought that was a smidge odd because usually in a rideshare situation, they know where you're going. But, I didn't think too much of it. And we got onto the freeway. I told him, and off we were. So about maybe a minute later, I got a call, and I answered it. And this man said, "Hey, Jasmine, I'm your rideshare driver. Where are you?" And I did just what I just did. I kind of went, "What? That's silly. I'm in my rideshare driver," really laughing it off because I didn't think anything of it. And he said, No, I'm your rideshare driver. Where are you?" And his voice was really serious, but I wasn't taking it seriously, right? It was just a funny little thing. Until the driver of the car that I was in reached his arm over the back of the seat and said, "Jasmine, give me your phone." And honestly, even at that moment, I was still like, what? And the man on the phone said, "Do not give him your phone." And I realized by the seriousness of his tone that something really serious was happening. And he understood what I didn't yet know, which was that I was being kidnapped by a fake rideshare driver. He knew right away what was happening. And so in that moment, I always like to tell this, it's really more of a PSA than having anything to do with my story. But in a moment like that, when you are scared, when you are surprised, you will look for someone to tell you what to do. And the quote unquote bad guys of the world know that. And so you'll look for the authority voice. So he repeated, "Give me your phone," and I almost did. And I am I think, a strong, independent-minded woman. and I almost gave him my phone. And so I always want to say that as part of this story, because I think it's an important thing to understand about our psyches. I didn't give him my phone because there was this angel of sorts on the other line saying, don't you dare. And so he instead instructed me to call out every landmark that I saw. And so I began to do that, right? Billboards and mile markers, speed limit. It didn't matter if it made sense. I was telling him. And I was shouting it out as he told me to do, so that the man driving knew that someone else knew where we were. And so as I was processing this, because you don't process it immediately. In fact, it's mostly disbelief. Even as something terrible is happening to you, you have just, your mind does not want to accept that this is what is happening. But when it finally did, which felt like forever, but was probably maybe a minute, when my mind finally accepted this, I had a really loud thought. It cut through all of the other chaos, right? The shouting out of the billboards, all these other things that are happening, right? He's telling me to give him the phone. The guy on the phone is telling me to shout these things out. There's a lot going on. But one thought sliced through that. And it was this: I'm never going to see my family again because of this stupid job. And it was loud when I thought stupid job, because remember, literally maybe 2 minutes ago, I mean, it's been no time at all, but feels like forever, I was thinking how fancy pants I was. I was so proud of myself, really feeling myself and all these things, right? Taking a picture so I could show it off, right? And now it's a stupid job.
Wow.
This was a moment in my life where everything instantly was crystal clear. This is what matters and this is what doesn't. It cut through everything all at once. And in that moment, I knew that I hadn't really done anything like in my life. Like, what was I doing? I was helping people make money, and I wasn't really making an impact on the world. And the people that I was impacting in the world were back home and I wasn't with them. And it was just this moment of really understanding, like, I'm not here to do this. I'm not here to fly back and forth away from a baby, by the way, that I was still breastfeeding, right? I'm flying back and forth away from my family to work for people who would replace me next month, right? No matter how fancy pants I think I am, what am I doing? And so in that moment, I was angry and I was going to survive. I realized that I hadn't done what I was supposed to do, that we are sent here to do something and I had not done it. And so I fought and I screamed, and finally he left me at an abandoned bus station, and I talked the wonderful man that was the real rideshare driver to me, who was truly the savior of this day of my life. And I remember standing at the bus station. It was a old, dusty, I mean, like just nothing there. It was just me in this empty, eerie place. And I'm standing there, there's this period of time where I'm trying to talk this person to a place I've never been, right? Trying to get him there. And I'm standing there and I'm in the back of my mind processing, right? That same thought, this stupid job, just processing it again and again. I almost died for this stupid job. And I stood there and I knew right away that this was it, that if I survived this, which I had, then I needed to actually live. And so when I walked into the office that day, it was the last time. I never went back and I never looked back. I launched a business helping women build businesses using intuition. It was something I had studied for a long time, but it was like a personal, cute little hobby, right? It wasn't something that I took seriously because I was very afraid. Years ago, talking about woo and spirituality and this kind of stuff, intuition in the realm of business was absolutely unheard of. The only time you could talk about intuition was in motherhood. So it was terrifying. And after almost dying, it just was like, what else is scary? And so I never went back. I haven't been back to San Francisco actually since then. And I launched this business and began building things and began teaching women how to build businesses through an intuitive lens. I knew how to build businesses, but now I had something that, a different lens to look through. And the thing that I tell people is that, you know, I can trace my life changing back to that day, that minute. And most people are not going to, thankfully, have this experience. I don't want that for anyone. But the thing that made a difference was not what happened. It was what I did next, because there's a lot of times in our life where we just go back to life. We just go back to what we were doing before and be like, wow, that was a crazy experience. I changed. And that is actually where the magic lives. And that can be anyone's moment. This moment, if you're listening to this, look at the clock right now. This right now could be your moment.
Oh my gosh, it's so powerful. Wow. Okay. So how do we unpack all of this?
It took me years.
You're right.
It took me years to unpack it. So
okay. So all right. Let's just let that be a lesson for our listeners to understand that, look, no matter if you have a situation like Jasmine's or a lot of little things that might be happening in your life, signs from the universe, whatever you want to call them, God winks, whatever, listen to them, because life is too short to play small and to not step into your ideal vision. That deep down thing, Jasmine, which I'm sure you probably teach people. I don't know. Do you call it their why? I mean, their intuition. People don't even know how. Let's get into that. People, when I talk about intuition, which I feel I was born with a very strong sense of, and I also want to bring up the fact that you said it's almost like you can't talk about intuition unless it's in motherhood. And that was like, I've never heard that before. And that is seriously so true. And you were saying that in the context of business, but I think that's in the context of like life. I think that a lot of people think it's like sacrilege, right? To just like listen to your gut, to listen to your intuition. How do women or people in general do that, who don't feel as though they were born with that within them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is, I wasn't really, it's not like I was walking around with a pack of tarot cards in my back pocket, right? I had a very quote unquote normal, right, life until, in my mid 30s. And so I certainly wasn't, there was nothing about me that you would say, oh, that, that's someone who's woo woo, so understand that it's not something that you are either have or you don't. It's not like that. It's an inner knowing. And I think every person has had moments of inner knowing, but those of us who don't consider ourselves intuitive have brushed them off every time they've happened, even if it's been hundreds, maybe thousands of times in your life. That there's a moment or many moments in your life where that has happened to you. You knew something and you didn't know how you knew. And so, for me, a few months after, this story is deeper, right? There's a much deeper story here. So a few months after this happened, this was an initial door opening for me. But a few months after this happened, I had a kundalini awakening, and spontaneous. Did not expect it. Was sitting in a recliner, like nothing fancy. I was not sitting in a yoga position or meditation. I was on the phone. And that opened my intuition in a really profound way, to the point that it couldn't be ignored. And the thing about, if you don't feel that you're intuitive, but you want to be, is that your intuition is waiting to be opened, right? And for me, it had to be this really dramatic. I mean, that is a dramatic story, right? That it was this, obviously I had ignored it so long that it was like somebody needed to slap me across the face to get me to wake up to it. But if you're sitting there listening to this and you want this, it's about leaning into it. It's about the next time you have one of those moments, not brushing it off. And then the next time, and then the next time. And it's this gradual opening instead of these really big moments, right? I really think that people like me have these moments to remind people of what can happen. But for most of us, we don't want or need it to be as dramatic. It's a very difficult, profound thing to have it happen the way that those things happen to me. And I think that part of why I tell the story is so that you, the listener, don't have to experience it like that. And I've seen, like I said, I've worked with thousands of women, and I know that over time of simply trusting that the thing that just happened is real, it becomes easier and easier. It's a muscle. You have an intuitive muscle, and for many, many people, it's pretty much atrophied, right?
Wow. So, all right. So you help people find their different energies, right? Like, can you explain a little bit about that? Because listen, I've been within my network marketing business. I learned about the color code. I have in my past learned about the Myers-Briggs, I've done the Enneagram. Now there's human design. What do you teach for people to understand about themselves and how to better lean into that?
Yeah. So you said human design last. I want to start there. So human design is a channeled modality. So unlike some of the other things that you just listed, the Enneagram is not a channeled modality. Myers-Briggs is a scientific modality created by literal scientists, right? The human design, though, stands out, right? And human design is a channeled modality. If you were to, any of you look this up, it came from non-human intelligences. I don't know how woo we're about to get, but human design has extremely woo origins. And part of the non-human intelligences behind human design, that group, is part of my modality, Spirit Leader Design. So when I sat down in that recliner, I was talking on the phone it was a discovery call for a potential client. Had that, what I thought was a lightning strike. It felt like you would imagine a lightning strike. And stood up, and I suddenly had intuitive abilities. It birthed in me. I don't really think it birthed in me. I think it was already in me, but it awakened in me something called Spirit Leader Design, which is a cousin to human design. So the group behind human design is part of the group behind Spirit Leader Design. So it is a channeled modality meant to support people in moving their mission. We came here with a mission. We came here to do something. And Spirit Leader Design is designed to help you do that thing. And much like human design is meant to help people understand themselves and understand how to live their life in a way that expresses their divinity, basically. And Spirit Leader Design is meant to help you express your mission. So Spirit Leader Design is it has a typing system just like all these others. And it basically, what you do is it has a quiz that you can self-assess. Just like anything, we don't always know ourselves as well as we think we do. And so it takes some time to fill into it to really know, okay, yes, that is my primary type. But once you really know what your primary type is, it literally helps you understand how you were built for business. And I don't mean that in a shallow way. Like, you were literally designed, you, Stacy, you, anyone listening, you were built exactly. If you have a heart for entrepreneurship, you were built in a very specific way in order to do what you're here to do. But most of us spend pretty much every day of our lives fighting that. We think, oh, you know what? I'm just not good at that. I'm just not good at this. I'm not good at that. And we think, oh, I can't do this because I'm not good at those things. No, there are things you are great at. And you are meant to build your business through those things.
Wow. I think a lot of people seek, and just based on me working with people, they want to know, like, they want to know more about themselves so that they can understand how to do business. I think it's something that's super needed. And obviously you've had a lot of success helping a lot of people with this. So, okay, let's back up. Jasmine, you were Working before, yes. But let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship before we dive back in. I'm just kind of bopping around because that's the way that my brain works. Um, when did you decide and when did you know that creating this empire that you have is what you needed to do? What about helping small business owners and entrepreneurs like drives you? Does that have to do with your spirit leader type?
That's a big question. So when did I know? I'm going to start with that one. When did I know? So I knew when I was about 5 years old, when my mother set up a Christmas shop to sell, she's an artist, and to sell her stuff. And I sat at this cute little cash register waiting for people to come. And she put an ad in the paper because that's how you did it back in the 80s. And I sat there and she had it so beautiful. She spent days, weeks setting it up, and not a single person came, not one. And I watched the light in my mother's eyes go out, and she'd never, ever, ever, ever tried again.
Wow. And
I have literally known since then that I was going to help women like that. Because if I, of course I was young, right? But if I was standing there now, she would try again. I know it. And so I think all of us have a moment. And, I've been building businesses my entire adult life, longer than that, because I began to have businesses when I was young. I mean, I've had businesses for the majority of my life. And so I knew that I wanted to do this, and I was incredibly skilled at it. And that's the thing that we find with what we're here to do, is that we're just really good at it and we can't really seem to help it. Spirit leader design was something that I think lay dormant until I was available to really embody it. And I was very scared of it. And I'm also, integrity is very important, right? And so when this began to come through, and it was like going in a room of your house, a room you go to all the time, passing your dining room or kitchen, and all of a sudden there is a chest and it is filled with information, stacks and stacks of information, but that chest was not there. You swear it wasn't there, but suddenly now you have all this information, right? And it would change people's lives. But like, where did it come from? That's how it felt. And so I didn't teach it right away. Instead, I learned it. I began to sort of process what I was receiving, and I would sort of ask people questions and start to verify it. And as it became clear that there were types. So in spirit leader design, there's light worker, grid worker, and energy workers. And these types are really specific. There's a lot of detail. It's very rich. And so I began to sort of test it without telling people. So, I would ask questions, and in my head, I would see if it matched up. And because I was already working with people, it was easy to just sort of do that. It didn't affect anything I was doing. I was just verifying. Because it's very scary to teach something where you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was years before I felt comfortable to, formally begin to teach that. And in fact, I began to teach it in my mastermind and one-on-one clients. And I did that for years before I actually put official programming together to begin to teach it.
Got it. Okay. And going back to what are you? Are you a light worker?
I'm a light worker. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Light workers, we teach through storytelling, and your listeners will come away from this and I will be the lady who was kidnapped.
For sure.
Yeah. And so light workers, we hold the vision. We can remind people of their potential. And so the feeling that your listeners will walk away from having heard me is that, gosh, man, I can do this. Like I was made for this. And that's kind of what light workers do. We're great at that. And we make people feel really good because we see people's potential that they themselves don't see.
Yeah.
And so we tend to be good on camera, and we tend to be good in conversation. My secondary is grid worker. So you're all all three types are in you, but they are percentages. If you take the quiz, which maybe we'll put in the
I did.
notes.
Yeah, we'll definitely, because I'm a light worker too. So I want to know. You tell me.
You're yellow.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So I see the colors. That was part of what came through. And so I always see the color. But one of the hardest things about spirit leader design is that it is really designed for you to have the journey, for you to, take the quiz, or you to lean into it, read about it, and learn it for yourself. And so sometimes people mistype, and they are like sitting there like, I'm an energy worker, which is red. And I'm sitting there looking at their yellow and being like, sure, that's great. Right. Which is why I didn't say to you, I almost said it earlier, like a light worker like you, but I didn't say it because,
That's funny. That's funny. Okay. So you said that sometimes that's hard. So let's talk about getting real first before we go back to what you do in entrepreneurship. That's why I was kind of digging in, like, when did you decide that you wanted to do this? Because being an entrepreneur and helping people and just trying to unlock people's potential, just based on my experience, because that's what I do too, in a sense, like, it's really hard. It's hard, but so is entrepreneurship in general. So Jasmine, as we take this holistic podcast that I have built mainly about plant-based nutrition, but we're shifting a little bit, a lot of it. We're adding in all of the pillars of holistic living. And one of them to me here at the Urban Pharmacy is intuitive business, which is why Jasmine is on this podcast. Can we talk about business itself and entrepreneurship itself, and talk about the hard things? Maybe you bring up a few of the things that are hardest for you, so that the entrepreneurs that are listening can maybe navigate those issues that they may be having. And maybe to also just have a sense of, oh, they struggle too, feeling.
Well, so life is hard. Life is hard because if you think about this in terms of the lotus flower grows up through mud. And while it is growing up through mud, there's no point where it's like, wow, this is really fun, right? But if it stopped growing up through the mud, we would never have flowers, right? The bloom would never happen. And so business is hard because life is hard, right? And so I don't believe that every person is meant to be an entrepreneur. There are lots of people who their mission is going to be fulfilled through relationships or volunteer work or, oh my goodness, motherhood, parenting, right? So not everybody is here to build a business. That would be really messy, right? But for those of you who are called to entrepreneurship, and if you are, if I'm talking about you, it will be hard because life is hard. It will make you look at all the things that are challenging to you. I always talk about business like it's an obstacle course for your soul, because you desire certain things within your business, and those desires work as like the carrot in front of the horse that gets it to move forward, and you want those things, but right now there's separation between you and those things, and so you will feel pain. Right? You'll feel challenged. You'll feel like, man, I just really want that, but I'm not there yet, or it's not good enough, or whatever. And so, yeah, there's challenges in business, and some of them, like I could list all the ways that it's challenging, but it's challenging for that reason. The hardest thing about business is not the logistics. Business is, admittedly, I've been doing business a long time, but business is talking to people, creating something wonderful, and then telling people about it. And then when they ask about it, selling it to them. That's all business is. But like, it's just value exchange. But the reason it's hard is because you have your worth tied up in that. If they don't buy it, then you feel rejected. If you don't buy it, you don't think you're good enough. Or people will say something because they don't have the courage to do it, and so they want to stop you from doing it. Like, the thing that is hard about business is what's hard about anything. It's you forget that your worth is never in question. And that's what it is.
So when your clients are having, I don't know, maybe they had a failed launch, or maybe their Instagram post got 2 likes, or maybe they didn't make the sale, or had a total event flop like your mom did. Like,
Mhm.
is that what you tell them? Like, look, the lotus flower didn't grow. The lotus flower comes up through mud. This is just how it's going to be. Keep going. You can do it. Like, do you have a, you know, are you speaking to that type, the person, like, if you know that they're a light worker, are you talking to them in a different way? Or are you basically, do you have a way to console people
Mhm.
when they're failing in business?
Well, what we're consoling in that moment is pain, right? So it's the feeling of rejection, and I think it is helpful to know what that is, because that is actually unique to people, right? The way it hits someone, and for some people, it could have the same experience and it hits them harder. And so, certainly, we acknowledge that, but I think the most important thing about this is that, for example, Stacey, if you and I were going to go on a road trip, which would be super fun, and we were going to go from San Diego to New York City, let's say, and we get in the car in San Diego and we're headed to New York City, and we make it to New Mexico and the road is closed. Like, did we just have a failure, or do we just need to find a different way? And so, most of my, like, if the only thing that someone is in it is for this launch to make $10,000, and if it doesn't, then they're done. Right? I mean, there's nothing you can do at that point if that's what they were in it for. Right? And so it's very important that when they understand that they have a mission, and they know that, and that you can't fail, like, because, like, if you and I are bebopping along here and we hit this detour situation, we're not going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. And just like in business, you and I would have more tools than any people in the history of the world. We have GPS in our hands, right? We would find a way. And so that's what we do. We find a way. There's no failure unless you just stop, right? If you and I are like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. We've had too many roadblocks. Maybe we're not meant to go to New York City and turn around, right? People always say that maybe it's not meant. It's not meant to if you turn around. Right? But if you and I keep finding a way around the detours, we're going to go to New York City.
Yeah.
So yes, I make it sound very simple, but the truth is it is simple. It's our pain that makes it challenging. But business itself is simple. And each type does have its different proclivities. But if we can come back to, what is this mission? What can we learn from this? How can we optimize this? Because you will, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, you will have failed launches or failed posts or whatever, like, you will. And if you can learn from that and tweak it, you're going to do better next time.
I love that. And I like how you keep talking about mission. That's actually something that, like, I work for a company called Beauty Counter. That's like part of my serial entrepreneur, like, sphere. I've got like multiple things going on, and that's just how I roll. But the reason why I linked arms with them years ago was because of their mission. And their mission is everything to me. It's to make sure that people are using safer products on their body, because most people just don't know about how toxic everything is. And that mission is what I always go back to if business gets rough or whatever. It's just like, look, it's really not that big of a deal. I've got a mission. And at the end of the day, if I am sharing it and getting this out, to the world, it'll come back and it's going to be fine. And if this, like, seems like it's a failure right now, it's not. And then I've also been doing that with myself, and just my, like, deep down, I think there's definitely, like you said, there's definitely been multiple things in my life, like a few near-death experiences, not being kidnapped, but, like, car wreck, white water rafting accident, like things that make you, whoa. And it's like, whoa, man, this life is way too short. And I've got a mission, and I'm just going to keep stepping into it every day, no matter if I have no idea how I'm going to get there or not.
Right.
So with that said, Jasmine, if people don't know their type, do you have any tips for people who are starting out on an entrepreneurial journey? Like, I don't know, maybe just off the top of your head, a few top tips before we start to wrap up today
Mhm.
of like what people can do to this is so like generalized and broad, but like to start a business with success or to go into business in a smart way.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So this will apply to anyone. So it's really build an audience. You can't sell anything if you don't have anyone to sell it to, right? And so if you are even thinking remotely of building a business and you know what sort of general, niche you want to build it in, start talking about that thing. People buy because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. And the only way to move people through that process is to begin talking to them about it. And so you have so many opportunities to do that now. You can so easily open up an Instagram account these days and begin talking about a topic that you're passionate about. You don't have to sell them anything. Don't even think about monetizing. Just talk about your thing. And in fact, you will probably find that people will reach out to you and see if they can purchase from you. And at that point, you can go, I guess I will monetize now. But just start, talking about a topic and telling stories about why that matters to you. That's an easy, gentle way to start. And all it is a conversation. Over here in the world of business, we call it marketing, but you don't even have to worry about that. You just need to have conversations and educate people on the topic. And a business will begin to form literally from that, right? The best business comes through an evolution of something that you love talking about anyway. And that's how you'll still be doing it years and years and years later. I could talk about business all day, every day to every person. I kind of actually do. My husband gets so tired of it. And that's when you know you're in the right industry.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Like, I love it. And you have a thing that you love. And if you feel called to entrepreneurship, you need to just start sharing it.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. Okay. So this is funny. During this podcast episode, I have my toddler knocking on the door. So this is just real mom life. If he walks in, listeners, just beware. You've heard him like sniffing in the background of other podcast episodes. So if it happens, it's going to happen. Okay, Jasmine, tell us a little bit more about your programs, about what you have to offer, where people can find you, how we can stay connected, your quiz, like all the things, because I think I pretty much like binged on your, like all your stuff when I, when I found you, but
Yes.
our listeners need to know all the things.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Women of Woo. And honestly, the best place for you to start is the quiz. If you've been listening to this, I could tell you 10 other things to do, but the quiz is life-changing. It's free and it's super easy. So just start there. It's womenofwoo.com/quiz. I'm sure that will be in the notes. It's a 9-question quiz. It's super simple, and you will be able to get information about your type, what percentages you are of the other types, and it'll put you into a couple emails that you'll get that will tell you more. And so, there are lots of things that we could do, but that is truly the best place to start, especially if you are new and you're trying to understand like how to bring your intuition into your business. That's really the best place to start, and it's free. So
Love it. Love it. Okay. And we can find tips on your Instagram page.
yep.
And then your like sister business, or what is that called?
So Women of Woo is the main company, and Spirit Leader Design is the Spirit Leader Design is technically the modality and the quiz. So the quiz gives you your Spirit Leader Design profile.
Got it. And the Spirit Leader Design Instagram page has like business tips, and that's a really great resource, guys. So if you're in business, tap into that. Okay, Jasmine. All right. I always ask my guests this question, and I can't wait to hear your answer. No pressure. No pressure. But what does holistic living mean to you?
Living intuitively in all parts of my life, trusting myself that I know best for my body, mind, and soul.
Ooh, good. So good. She didn't even see there we go. That is like, you didn't even take 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You just literally, you literally knew. Like most people are like, oh gosh, well, but you're like, this is it. Like, I love it. I love it. Okay. So good. All right, friend. Well, we will get all of the links that we have for you in our show notes. You guys, thanks so much for listening. I hope Jasmine inspired you as much as she inspired me. And I can't wait to take our relationship offline. You guys need to stay in touch with her and remember to believe in yourself.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Jasmine. Be well. Okay, hold on.